Today, we are going to be talking about local service ads, aka LSAs. And today, we're going to be talking about how to offer them to your SEO clients. There's a number of things that we're going to cover today. One, we're going to talk about what they are and how they work. Um, we have started, well, we've been using them at our agency now for a while. I'm going to talk about how and why we integrated them into our service and why they're so important, especially if you're doing SEO or just doing SEO. If you've never done any paid tactics before, LSAs are the easiest thing that you can tack on and offer. I'm going to talk about how to do that, who to use to do it, etc. Everything that you need to know about it. Francisco's going to talk about how to set up and manage them. So we're literally going to take you inside of our agency's Google MCC account. We're going to go through kind of soup to nuts. We've even got an SOP on like a whole checklist on what you need to do to get these ads set up and running. Talk about who to hire. Spoiler alert, I do not suggest that you do these on your own, but the good news about this is that these are not nearly as complicated as traditional pay-per-click ads. So it's very easy to hire a contractor. And I think what's important here too is that these presentations are incredibly important for you who have no experience doing this before, because this is going to make you dangerous. It's going to make you understand what you should be looking for, both from an optimization setup and performance point of view. So that way it's much easier to find somebody to do this for you as a contractor. And then finally, I'm going to talk about how to integrate this into your offer as an SEO agency and how to sell this to clients. So I'm just going to give you and show you the actual slides from our proposal that we use at our agency. So let's just start with what are LSAs. This is a screenshot from a Google search for injury attorney near me. These are going to show up, the LSAs kind of have multiple names. Some people call them Google Screened, Google Verified, LSAs, local service ads, local ads. They kind of have a wide range of monikers, if you will, but they're the ones that show up for any localized service-based query. A lot of the times you don't have to put in any sort of modifier, especially if you're on your phone. This is a desktop screenshot, so I put it near me to get them to trigger. There's 3 showing up here. Most of the time it's just 2, but I do think Google's expanding the inventory on here to make some more money. So they were launched, I actually had to do some research on this. I thought they were newer than this, but they were launched in 2015 as Google's effort to connect. I'm going to give you what the internet says versus what I think, because I think my hypothesis is actually probably closer to why Google really launched these. This is verbiage from the internet. Google launched these to connect local businesses with customers searching for specific services. They initially rolled out with not a lot of coverage. I think it was just a few different industries that they were in, some home services type businesses. Now you can you just type in Google LSAs and Google has a whole page on all the different categories and verticals that they service. They're constantly expanding it. Even within law, right? There's different pockets of law: personal injury law, accident, divorce, business law. There's all different pockets of law that they now specifically service. And that's important because we talk about the targeting. The targeting of these are not based on keywords like SEO and traditional PPC ads. They're based on categories. They're also tied to your Google business profile. So, we'll talk about a lot of that as we get through it. But just at a high level, that's why Google launched them. Now, I also have some deeper thoughts on this, just based on my experience doing this. I look at LSAs as similar to how Instagram launched the boost post from the Instagram app, right? All of these platforms make all their money off of advertising dollars. They want to make it as easy and as simple as possible for every business to be able to spend money on their platform and get some sort of result from it. So similar to how Instagram and Facebook launched that like boost post, right? That you just set up your credit card, you can do it from within the app. You don't need to go into the ad platform. It's very, very simple to do. LSAs are very similar to that. You don't have to run them through the AdWords platform, although I do believe that's changing. There was a separate platform that they built. They wanted the small businesses to be able to run ads and get results without having to use people like Francisco, myself, and all of you out there. Google doesn't really love us. We're a necessary evil, if you will, but they want to open up the advertising platform, make as much money as possible, and open up search to everyone as possible. Now, that being said, I have some additional hypotheses as we get through this and we talk about why LSAs might not be working. My hypothesis is that Google gives preference to newer accounts because they want to introduce you to the platform, get you some results. It's kind of like a gateway drug, if you will, to then start spending on traditional pay-per-click ads, which is where a majority of their nut is. I don't know, Francisco, if you have something to add there.
I mean, yeah, they definitely prioritize new accounts over established accounts. I mean, I've had accounts that spend $80,000 a month only for it to go to zero. And then we have to create a new account. It happens all the time.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of those troubleshooting things in the more advanced things as we get into this and kind of the downsides of LSA. So why use LSAs? And this is also framed, keep in mind, I'm talking to you, the SEO agency, search marketing agency, not necessarily the end user, the contractor, the HVAC specialist, the lawyer. I'm talking to you. Why should you use LSAs for your clients? Why should you push clients to use these? So first and foremost, placement. They show up at the very, very top of Google search. So I've got a couple of sample queries here. HVAC repair, right? We see the Google guarantee, the sponsored. These are LSAs right here. They always, always, always show up at the top. Here's car accident lawyers in Miami. Again, they show up at the very, very top of the SERPs. That's a huge bonus. When we talk about cutting the line for this keyword here, which if you were to put this into Google AdWords, you're looking at maybe 300 bucks a click, on a good day. So you're cutting the line. You're cutting all the traditional PPC, you're cutting the maps pack, you're cutting everything going straight to the top of SERPs. And keep in mind too, that a large majority of these are happening on mobile phones. So it's right at the top of the SERPs. Now, that also can have a bit of a downside when we talk about why LSAs might not be working. What happens also, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You're cutting the line, but you're also getting a lot more errant calls and a lot more errant leads, if you will, from it because it's directly at the top. People aren't doing any research. They're clicking a call and they're calling right away. Now, the good thing about that too is it's a pay per lead model. And if it's a bad lead, right, something that's unqualified or completely, for example, our car accident attorneys tell us sometimes like, hey, I'm getting phone calls for auto body shops, right? Because if somebody types in car accident lawyer might show up, they call them, they're looking for an auto body shop. Google used to allow you to dispute those manually. Now it's automated, but Google's platform will automatically dispute those and you'll get your money back, right? And because these are pay per lead, you're paying for the outcome, you're not paying for the click. So traditional pay-per-click ads, you're paying per click. You put it into AdWords, you put it into Ahrefs, you can see what that keyword costs if you were to pay for it. That's at the per click basis, not per conversion basis. LSAs go to the end result, which is per result. So you're paying per lead, you're paying per action. So for small businesses, especially, or when you're selling this to clients, it's much easier for them to quantify this, right? It's much easier for them to understand what they're paying per outcome than you having to do math on what they may or may not pay per click versus what they may or may not pay per lead or per outcome. So it's another huge benefit here when it comes to selling these to clients. Again, if you go to if you just type in Google LSA calculator, it'll take you, Google will tell you what the expected cost per action, cost per lead is. It's usually a little bit lower than we end up paying for our clients, but it's still pretty accurate when you're talking about selling these things, right? We literally built the traffic projection tool for SEO so you can understand what the outcome of an SEO campaign is. Google's doing this, and they're telling you, if you work with HVAC contractors, what the cost per call might be. I have a short story. I have a friend who just opened a barbershop, and the cost per lead for barbershops is like $3. And I'm like, dude, like you should be running these LSAs because no other barbers are doing it. Now, this is all demand gen real estate. So if more barbers get aware of this, that cost will go up, like we see in the legal space. And we'll talk more about like the more advanced kind of aspects of this. But the pay per lead thing is very enticing both for you as an agency and for the client because you don't have to say, well, you need to spend 20,000 a month. It's more how many leads do you want to get? This is probably what you need to spend in order to get that. It's much easier for them to quantify and much easier for you to sell. It's far simpler than AdWords. And again, this is good for you as an agency because if you really want to learn how to do these yourself, you can. But I always suggest finding a contractor. We'll talk more about that. And it's going to be much easier for you to manage that person because you know what the expected outcome should be. LSAs aren't about the optimization. It's more about the management. And again, I'll talk more about that as we get through it. And then again, finally, for you on the agency side of things, this is really why we started pushing LSAs on top of all of our attorney clients. When you work with car accident attorneys or personal injury attorneys, it is probably the most competitive space on the internet when it comes to local businesses. Right? Not probably, it is hands down, right? So from an SEO point of view, that means time and a lack of results over time. And it's really hard to walk into a contract and say, hey, I need $15,000 a month for 12 months before you see anything. It's a really hard pitch if you think about that. LSAs give you the option to skip the line, without going in with an AdWords budget of $50,000 to $75,000 a month to get them results, right? So we'll talk about how to integrate these in, but I'll just tell you right now, what we started doing is we just do these for our clients for free. We don't charge them for LSAs. We say, if you sign up for SEO, we're also going to set up and manage and optimize your LSAs. We got a ton of experience with it. And it buys us time, because for the most part, how I teach SEO in here is outcome-based SEO, right? You should be selling outcomes, not be selling the inputs of your service. The challenge with that is you got to get results when you do that. And LSAs allow you to do that very, very quickly, and also even stamp a guaranteed on it, because they're not going to make, they're not going to pay anything until they get a lead, right? So you're really skipping the line. You're buying so much trust and goodwill. Now, depending on what industry you work in, they're going to have a different level of understanding of LSAs, right? When I first started offering LSAs to clients, I thought I could be slick and say, I can put a guarantee on these, but every attorney is aware of LSAs and they've already run them themselves. So it was hard to, so it's not like it just depends on who you're working with. Again, if you're working with barbershops, that might be different, but we'll talk about as we get through these. So they're really, really good at building trust and buying time. So let's quickly just hit on some challenges with LSAs, because as great as they seem, it's really more, they seem good on paper until you start running these sometimes. So big challenges with lead quality. I talk to 10 attorneys a week at a minimum. And pretty much every single one that I talk to is either doing LSAs or done LSAs. Very few are like, oh, I've never, like zero has never been like, oh, I've never heard of them before, right? The reason, number one, why they stop running them is just lead quality. You just, again, when you sit on top of the SERPs and you don't have the budget to spend for a few months to see how the leads perform over time, you're going to get a lot of errant calls. There's just no way around it. It's part of the business, it's part of the model, and it just is what it is. So because it sits at the top, you tend to get less quality leads per se. They're cheaper than AdWords, but they're less quality. And depending on the mindset of the customer, you have to manage that properly. And also too, because of how you bid on these, with AdWords, there's negative keyword lists where over time you can stop showing up for certain queries that don't work. With these, there's none of that. You're basically just like, you tell Google, we'll show you how to set them up. This is the category. These are the practice areas I want to target. You get what you get, right? Support. Somebody already commented in here. There is no support available from Google. They might say that they do. It doesn't matter how much you spend. It doesn't matter who you think you are. They do not care if and when your ads stop working, because it's really more a matter of when than if. I don't think I've ever seen an LSA account, Francisco, correct me if I'm wrong, work for more than a couple of months. In the injury space anyways.
Typically, yeah. I mean, again, like I was saying before, we, had accounts spending $80,000 a month happily for months, and they just stop spending. You call support and they'll give you a different answer every single time you call, and you'll change those things and it won't work. So at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to create a new account.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that too. Again, I just said issues with long-term performance. They're known to stop working suddenly. It's not like SEO where there's like, okay, there's an issue that we can debug and get it to show up again. It's just, you literally go from 100 phone calls and then the next week your ads just don't show up. They literally just get no impressions on them. And there's really nothing you could do aside from what Francisco just said. Our best solution to that is to just start a new account. We'll talk about that process, transfer everything over. We've had pretty good success with getting that to impress a little bit, but it's not a guarantee. And you can't charge a whole lot for it, right? Like, this is not something like AdWords management where if they're spending 100,000, you can take 10%. Because frankly, like, the more you spend, it doesn't make it any more work. If you spend $1, it's the exact same amount of work as spending $100,000. And as we go through kind of the setup of this, you'll see this and understand this. So this is also why, like, you have to be very mindful when integrating this in, that this is not going to be a profit center per se to charging clients for. I purely view this as a building of relationship, a building of trust, an open dialogue, and driving towards what we want, which is more conversions. But we make $0 off of these. It is what it is. So something to be mindful of as you get through this. Don't watch this and say, I've got a brand new offer that I'm going to make $1 million with. This is more of a, how do we help our clients get results what they're ultimately paying for.
Hey, Ryan here. Hope you liked that video. If you want more, check out these two videos right here on the screen.